Welcome to PowerCode Music. In this presentation, we are going to talk about the MOTU MIDI Express XT 8x8 MIDI Patchbay and why I use it. If you use MIDI on more than 5 or 6 devices in your home studio, and they have the 5-pin DIN MIDI ports, then you know how difficult a setup like that can be to manage and maintain. I've used MIDI Patchbays in my home studio in one form or another since the mid-90s to control my growing herd of MIDI gear. My previous unit was the JL Cooper MSB 16x20, which was a great device that served me well for almost 2 decades. Now, when that device started to freeze up, I knew I had to get rid of it and replace that quickly, so I did. Since companies don't make 16x20 5-pin DIN MIDI Patchbays anymore, I knew my next solution would have to be different. Now, for additional and detailed information on MIDI Patchbays, watch my presentation, Audio and MIDI Patchbays, Why I Use Them, on this channel. The requirements for my next MIDI Patchbay solution were actually pretty simple, and it comprised of 4 basic requirements. The first was that the platform must allow me to connect all of my devices with MIDI ports, naturally. My next platform must be flexible enough for me to expand, manage, and save multiple MIDI configurations in my studio. The next platform will provide me, or needed to provide me, with SMPTE timecode functionality. And the next platform had to be reliable, like my JL Cooper MIDI Patchbay was. With this, I chose the MOTU MIDI Express XT. MOTU was founded back in 1981 and is based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. MOTU stands for Mark of the Unicorn. In my studio, I have 3 MOTU MIDI Express XT units. I connect them all to my PC via the USB ports on each device to create one base platform for MIDI management and control. In this presentation, we're going to check out the unit's features, technical specifications, along with why and how I use it. First, let's look at the MOTU MIDI Express XT's features. Express XT is an 8-in and out MIDI Patchbay. The unit has 128 MIDI channels. It supports MIDI machine control, and the MIDI merge matrix allows users to connect and reroute MIDI gear. It's kind of the whole purpose of the unit. The unit also has SMPTE tape sync in all formats and an audio click input. Users can save and recall MIDI configurations via the MIDI patch change, and the unit has front panel presets. It also has a pedal input for hands-free control, and the unit comes with software for Mac and Windows. If you buy it used, you can always download that from the motu.com website. Now, we'll check out the MOTU MIDI Express XT's technical specifications. The type of device we have, of course, is a MIDI interface, and when it comes to ports, it's an 8x8 128 MIDI channel device. For MIDI IOs, we have 8 in and 8 out, and the USB is a Type B USB. For other IO, we have a 1/4 inch input for a momentary foot switch, and for clock IOs, we have 2 connections, which is a SMPTE in and out. Now, if you're going to connect this device to a PC, it's going to be via the USB. We talked about this previously when it comes to features. This is a SMPTE generator, converter, and reader. The software that you're going to use to configure the device is the Clockworks software, and it's compatible with Mac and Windows. The unit also uses a standard AC cable, and below that stat, you'll have the height, width, and depth of the unit. Let's move on to how I use the MOTU MIDI Express XT. My 3 MOTU MIDI Express XT units are connected together via their MIDI out and in ports, linking one unit to another in a straight chain. In order to control and manage all of the units as one, I installed the proprietary MOTU Clockwork software on my PC, which can be downloaded from the motu.com website. I then connected all three of my MOTU MIDI Express XT units to a powered USB hub, and then connected that powered USB hub to my PC. Now, using a powered USB hub is important to ensure that all three of the devices have enough power. The Clockwork software application appears then as a single window for each MOTU interface connected to my PC. Clockworks is a software application that gives me access to the programmable features of all three of my MOTU MIDI Express XT units through my computer. Now, this creates a centralized MIDI network. Using the Clockwork software, I can make changes to synchronization settings, I can filter data on specific inputs or outputs, or I can route MIDI data from any MIDI device to any other MIDI unit. Now, this is important. You only need to run Clockworks if you wish to customize your interface settings on your MIDI Express XT. If you only want to use it with a MIDI sequencer, you don't need to make any changes at all. You see, the factory settings allow sequencing software to individually access any of the input or output ports on your MOTU MIDI Express XT. Now we'll do an overview of the MOTU Clockwork software application. We'll start with the File menu. So we're going to do a brief summary of the main items in the Clockworks File menu. The first item is the Devices area. Any MOTU MIDI interfaces that have established communication with Clockworks, they're going to appear at the top of the File menu. Choose a device to open its window or bring it to the forefront. The next menu item is the Load Configuration. This opens a previously saved Clockworks document and restores all of the MOTU interface settings saved in that document. The next menu item is the Save Configuration. This menu item saves all of the current MOTU interface settings in Clockworks as a document on a disk. You can restore the settings by opening it with the Load Configuration command. The next menu item is Refresh. Clockworks always reflects the current state of the MOTU interface. However, if at any time you suspect that the windows in the Clockworks don't accurately reflect what's going on in the hardware, choose Refresh from the File menu. Clockworks will then be updated to reflect the current state of the hardware. The next menu item is Reset to Factory Settings. This menu item restores the factory default settings in the interface. We'll start with the Routings tab. This screen provides a simple way for you to route MIDI data from any device connected to your MOTU interface to any other device connected to it. It provides you with complete control over the flow of MIDI data through the interface. Again, it's like a hardware network setup. Let's move on to the Presets tab. This screen allows you to name the user presets in your MOTU interface and choose which one is active by clicking the button next to its name. Next, we have the Mutings tab. This screen is a MIDI data filter that controls what types of data will be sent and received by each MIDI out and MIDI in cable. Now here you can filter out any type of MIDI data on any channel on any cable. Also, each MIDI channel can have its own unique muting setup. The Mutings tab shows the muting status for each type of data on all MIDI channels and all cables at once, giving you immediate feedback on the state of the interface. Next, we have the Mappings tab. This screen controls the channelizing of MIDI data on all MIDI in and MIDI out cables. With flexibility, this window can switch data from its current MIDI channel to any other channel immediately when the data enters or exits the MOTU interface. Now let's talk about synchronization and MIDI machine control, or MMC. The Sync tab and the related sync controls at the top of the window give you control over the MOTU interface's sync and MMC transport control features. Now let's talk about first the transport control features. Now they are like standard tape deck controls. These buttons control the time code generated by your MOTU interface when it's in internal mode. Let's move on to the next one, which is the SMPTE readout. The SMPTE readout provides a running update of the time code being generated or converted by your MOTU interface. This running update is made possible by the MIDI time code, the MTC, that's generated by your MOTU interface and routed to your PC. Next, we have the locate buttons. You can set the 8 locate buttons to any SMPTE frame location you wish, and then cue the MIDI interface. And all connected devices, you can do this as desired by clicking the appropriate locate button. The next control is the clock mode menu, or should I say the next is the clock mode menu. This setting determines the clock mode for the MOTU interface. The next is the frame rate menu. The frame rate menu lets you choose the overall time, or should I say overall time base, and then time code frame rate for the MOTU interface. Let's move on now to the Sync tab. This screen has the following status indicators and options, and we'll start with the status section. This area provides detailed information about what state your MOTU interface is in as a synchronizer. Next, we have the frame lock. This checkbox is only available when the MOTU interface is locking to an external SMPTE time code in any form, such as MTC or LTC. It's not available when the MOTU interface is in internal sync mode, so keep that in mind. Next, we have generate signal when stopped. This option applies to situations in which the MOTU interface is converting time code and the source code time, or should I say the source time code, continues even when it's parked on a frame. Next, we have the auto detect input frame rate. When this option is checked, the MIDI interface will automatically detect the frame rate of incoming time code. Moving on, we have the LTC output. This slider allows you to adjust the overall gain of the time code from the MOTU interface LTC output jack. Move it forwards, or should I say move it towards the left to reduce the level, and move it towards the right to increase it. Next, we have the still frame sensitivity. This option lets you control how many frames in a row the MOTU interface needs to receive to consider incoming SMPTE as being parked on a single frame. Next, we have the freewheel. This option lets you set the number of frames the MOTU interface will freewheel over when it encounters a time code dropout. After that, we have the MIDI machine ID. This option lets you change the MMC, that is MIDI machine control device ID, of the MOTU interface. Moving on, we have the pedal tab. This pedal tab lets you program the pedal input on your MOTU interface. You can use the foot pedal, or should I say you can use a foot pedal to generate MIDI data such as notes, controllers, patch changes, pitch bend, and system exclusive, and route that data from the pedal to any device. Now let's move on to the pedal type menu. There are 2 choices here, and they are none and normal. After that, we have the MIDI message. Now a pedal can generate 1 or more MIDI messages, including MIDI notes, pitch bend, controllers, patch changes, or sysx data. Up to 47 bytes of information can be sent for pedal up and pedal down positions. It's pretty cool. Last but not least, we have the channel. Each message in the list can be assigned to go out to a unique MIDI channel. And folks, that's why I use the MOTU MIDI Express XT. Well, my friends, that's a wrap. If you like this presentation, please give it the thumbs up and click the subscribe button on your screen now to join our group. We have new presentations coming out every 7 to 14 days, and we would love to have you be a part of our team. Also, leave a comment in the comments section to let us know what you think about this content. And check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, and TikTok. Also, while you're here, check out some of the other music, videos, and especially the playlists, because they're designed just for you. Thank you so much for stopping by. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you soon.